They were quiet before, but now they're silent for a reason. When an introvert stops caring, something powerful happens. The same person who used to overthink every word, every emotion, every relationship suddenly detaches. They stop explaining themselves. They stop absorbing everyone's chaos. And for the first time, their silence isn't about shyness, it's about clarity. People mistake that shift for coldness, but it's not. It's strength. Because when an introvert stops caring, they're no longer controlled by approval, guilt, or obligation. They stop trying to fit in and start standing alone, calm, grounded, and untouchable. Their stillness becomes intimidating because it's no longer timid, it's chosen. This video will uncover the quiet transformation that happens when introverts stop caring, why they become sharper, more focused, and impossible to manipulate. You'll see how their peace turns into power and how detachment becomes their greatest weapon. If you've ever reached the point where you stopped chasing, overthinking, or explaining yourself, this is your reminder that your silence isn't weakness, it's evolution. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Brainy Quiet Mind, where we explore the power of stillness, emotional mastery, and self-awareness. And tell me in the comments, have you ever stopped caring and felt stronger because of it? They stop overanalyzing people's opinions and start trusting their own judgment. There comes a point when an introvert realizes that peace is more valuable than approval. For most of their lives, they've carried the weight of other people's opinions, replaying conversations, decoding tone shifts, trying to please, trying to avoid conflict. Every comment felt personal, every judgment heavy, but one day something shifts. They stop asking, "What will they think of me?" and start asking, "What do I think of myself?" That question changes everything. This moment doesn't happen overnight. It builds quietly through exhaustion, the constant mental loops, the overthinking, the fear of disappointing others. It all becomes too much, so they decide to trust their intuition instead of the crowd. Their decisions become quieter but firmer, their confidence subtle but unshakable. They stop seeking validation and start relying on self-awareness. And when that happens, their energy changes. They no longer bend to fit into other people's expectations. They stand firmly in their own truth. People around them feel the shift. The once overly cautious, people-pleasing introvert now speaks with calm certainty. They say no without guilt and walk away without explaining. Their silence no longer comes from insecurity. It comes from knowing exactly what they want and what they won't tolerate. They've learned that not everyone deserves a say in their path, and not every opinion deserves space in their mind. This new mindset makes them powerful because when you stop fearing judgment, you become unpredictable, untouchable. You stop being controlled by perception and start being guided by purpose. The introvert who once analyzed every reaction now moves in quiet confidence, trusting that their instincts are enough. And that terrifies people who once thrived on their uncertainty. The transformation is subtle but undeniable. They no longer explain their choices, defend their dreams, or dilute their voice. They think for themselves deeply, independently, unapologetically. And that's when they become dangerous in the best way possible, when their calm no longer depends on approval, but on alignment with who they truly are. Their silence turns from hesitation into focused observation. There was a time when an introvert's silence came from uncertainty, from not knowing what to say, from fear of saying the wrong thing, from overthinking every possible reaction. But as they evolve, that same silence transforms into something entirely different, something powerful. It's no longer hesitation, it's control. They've learned that silence gives them something most people overlook: perspective. When everyone else rushes to speak, they watch. When others argue to be heard, they listen. While the world reacts emotionally, they observe patterns, energy, and intent. Their silence becomes their superpower. People mistake that quiet for indifference, but it's far from it. Inside, the introvert's mind is sharp, analyzing, decoding, connecting dots that no one else notices. Every shift in tone, every pause, every contradiction in someone's story, they catch it instantly. They're no longer lost in thought, they're collecting truth. And because they've detached from needing to respond right away, they see things others miss. Their silence becomes strategic, a pause that reveals more than words ever could. This transformation happens the moment they realize that power doesn't come from being the loudest, it comes from being the most aware. They start noticing how people expose themselves through their behavior, how authenticity and deceit have different rhythms. They no longer speak to fill space, they speak only when it matters. Every word becomes intentional, measured, precise, and that precision makes their voice impossible to ignore. What used to be shyness now feels like mastery. They can stand in a room full of noise, completely calm, while everyone else competes to be heard. Their silence draws attention without effort, because deep down, people sense it's not emptiness, it's focus, it's awareness, it's power contained. When an introvert reaches this stage, their quiet no longer isolates them, it elevates them. They stop reacting to the noise and start reading it. And the moment they start observing instead of over-explaining, everything changes. Their silence becomes magnetic, unsettling, respected, because the truth is, when an introvert stops hesitating and starts observing, they don't just hear what's said, they understand what's meant. And that level of awareness, it's what makes their quiet so dangerous. They detach from emotional chaos and move only with intention. At some point, an introvert realizes that not every storm deserves their presence. They've spent years being pulled into emotional whirlwinds, trying to calm others, fix problems, and carry burdens that were never theirs. Every drama, every conflict, every sudden wave of energy around them once demanded a reaction. But now they've learned the art of detachment, not the cold, bitter kind, but the peaceful, intentional kind, the kind that comes from understanding that chaos is contagious and their calm is too valuable to waste. When they detach, it's not because they've stopped caring. It's because they finally understand that caring doesn't mean absorbing. They can empathize without drowning, love without losing themselves, and listen without internalizing everyone else's pain. Their energy becomes sacred, something to be protected, not drained. So when emotional chaos erupts, they don't react. They pause, they breathe, they observe. They decide whether the situation deserves their energy before they give it. This shift changes everything. The same people who once expected them to fix things start to feel their distance. The introvert no longer jumps into arguments or emotional spirals. They choose their words and their movements carefully. Their calm becomes unsettling to those who thrive on drama because it can't be manipulated. You can't control someone who doesn't need your approval, and you can't shake someone who isn't attached to chaos. Their detachment isn't avoidance, it's discipline. It's learning to move with purpose instead of impulse. Every decision becomes intentional, every step deliberate. They no longer act to please, react to guilt, or respond to noise. Their life slows down, but in that stillness, they gain control. They operate from clarity, not emotion, from focus, not fear. People may call them distant or detached, but that's only because they've never experienced real peace. The introvert has learned that not every battle needs their presence, not every invitation deserves a reply, and not every emotion requires engagement. Their energy now flows where it's respected, not demanded. And that's what makes them dangerous, because when an introvert detaches from chaos and starts moving with intention, they become unstoppable, not because they fight harder, but because they finally fight smarter. They no longer chase connection, they attract it through calm confidence. There was a time when the introvert felt invisible, when they chased connection, overthought every message, and tried to prove their worth through kindness and understanding. They wanted to be accepted, to be seen, to belong. But after years of disappointment, they learned something life-changing. Genuine connection can't be forced. The people meant for you will find you, not through effort, but through energy. So they stopped chasing, and everything started to shift. When the introvert finally releases the need to be liked, they start radiating something powerful. Calm confidence. It's not arrogance or pride, it's the quiet knowing that their peace is worth more than someone's approval. They no longer seek validation in attention, they find it in alignment. They know who they are, what they value, and what kind of energy they'll allow into their world. That kind of self-assurance can't be faked, and people can feel it. It's why others suddenly become drawn to them. The same stillness that once made them seem distant now feels magnetic. There's a gravity to their presence, a quiet that makes people want to stay, to listen, to open up. They attract what they used to chase simply by being authentic. There's no performance, no pretending to fit in, just calm, steady energy that says, I don't need to be everywhere, I just need to be real. What's remarkable is how effortless it becomes. They don't try to impress anymore, they express. They don't adjust their personality to match a room, they let the right people find them. The noise of approval fades, replaced by genuine resonance. Their circle may shrink, but it deepens. The connections they attract now aren't built on need, but on mutual respect and understanding. That's the quiet transformation of the evolved introvert. They stop chasing attention and start attracting alignment. They understand that desperation repels, but peace attracts. They no longer run after validation because they finally embody it. And in a world obsessed with noise, that level of calm confidence stands out like silence in a crowd. When introverts stop chasing connection, they don't become isolated, they become magnetic. Because the truth is, nothing draws people in more than someone who's perfectly content standing alone. Their energy becomes selective, and that focus makes them powerful. As introverts evolve, they stop scattering their energy across every person, every task, and every emotion that demands their attention. They've learned the hard way that not everything deserves access to their mind. There was a time when they gave endlessly, time, compassion, effort, hoping it would come back, but it rarely did. Eventually, they realize that their energy is currency, and where it's spent determines what kind of life they build. So they became selective, not out of arrogance, but out of awareness. This shift is subtle but transformative. They no longer reply out of obligation, say yes to everything, or engage in conversations that drain them. Their no becomes sacred, a shield that guards their peace. Every commitment, every connection, every project now passes through one filter. Does this feed my energy or deplete it? And if the answer is no, they walk away without hesitation. That decision, quiet and firm, marks the moment they take back their power. People who once took their attention for granted start to feel the distance. The introvert no longer entertains gossip, emotional games, or meaningless distractions. Their focus becomes razor sharp. They invest their energy only in what aligns with their purpose: learning, growth, genuine relationships, peace. It's this selectiveness that transforms them from quiet observers into unstoppable forces. Because when your energy is scattered, you're reactive. But when your energy is focused, you're intentional. That's what makes introverts dangerous in the best way. Their calm isn't passive, it's strategic. They conserve energy not because they're tired of people, but because they've finally learned that not everyone deserves access to their peace. And the moment they channel that saved energy into themselves, their work, their goals, their inner growth, their results become impossible to ignore. This is the quiet evolution of power. They no longer waste energy explaining, proving, or chasing. They move with clarity, and their presence carries weight because it's no longer scattered. Their energy becomes rare and therefore respected, because once an introvert becomes selective with their energy, they stop living by reaction and start creating by design. They stop explaining their worth and let their actions speak instead. For years, introverts often feel pressured to prove themselves, to justify their quiet, to explain their value, to show the world that their silence doesn't mean weakness. They over-explain, overthink, and overgive, hoping someone will finally understand their depth. But there comes a day when that need simply fades. They wake up and realize that true confidence doesn't require translation. They no longer need to explain who they are, what they mean, or why they do what they do. They just do it. This shift is quiet but seismic. They stop defending their peace to people who mistake calm for apathy. They stop proving their intelligence to those who equate volume with value. Instead, they channel all that energy inward into building, creating, and growing. Their silence becomes productive, their focus relentless. Where they once explained their dreams, they now show results. Where they once sought approval, they now set standards. Their actions become their language, and their progress speaks with more authority than any argument ever could. The beauty of this transformation is how subtle it is. They don't announce the change, they simply move differently. They stop engaging in draining conversations, stop oversharing their plans, and stop waiting for validation. The same people who once doubted them start to wonder how they became so composed, so effective, so sure. The answer is simple. They stopped wasting energy convincing and started using it creating. This newfound quiet confidence changes how the world sees them. When they walk into a room, they don't need to prove their worth. It's felt. Their presence carries weight because it's backed by discipline, not words. They've learned that explanations are for those who seek approval. Execution is for those who seek growth. And that's what makes them powerful, not louder, but clearer. Every boundary they enforce, every decision they make, every step they take now says, watch me. Because the moment an introvert stops explaining their worth, they stop being underestimated. They no longer ask to be understood. They simply become undeniable. Their solitude turns into a weapon for clarity and reinvention. For most people, solitude feels like emptiness, something to escape. But for introverts, it becomes the forge where transformation happens. They've learned that being alone isn't isolation, it's recalibration. When the noise fades, the distractions disappear, and the world stops pulling at them, they finally hear the one voice that truly matters. Their own. That's when clarity strikes. In solitude, they see everything clearly: who's draining them, what's distracting them, and where they actually want to go. What others fear, stillness, becomes their secret advantage. This is where the quiet ones reinvent themselves. While everyone else rushes to stay visible, they disappear intentionally. They pull back not to hide, but to refine. Their solitude becomes a laboratory for self-mastery, where they study their emotions, sharpen their purpose, and rebuild their identity without outside influence. They analyze their mistakes without judgment, their patterns without ego. In that stillness, they rediscover their focus, their creativity, and their power. People often misinterpret this withdrawal as disinterest, but it's actually evolution. They're not cutting everyone off. They're tuning everything out that doesn't align with where they're going. The same quiet that once made them feel disconnected now becomes their sanctuary, the place where they design the next version of themselves. Every day alone strengthens their emotional armor and sharpens their mental precision. By the time they reemerge, they're calmer, clearer, and more grounded than ever. But what's powerful is that solitude teaches them something crowds never can: how to move without noise. They no longer crave validation or permission. They create silently, plan privately, and act strategically. Their peace becomes their compass, and their solitude becomes their training ground. It's in that silence that they become dangerous, because they're no longer reacting to the world, they're creating their own. By the time others notice the change, it's already too late to catch up. The introvert who once doubted themselves has evolved quietly behind closed doors. They've reinvented who they are and redefined what they'll accept. Because solitude, in their hands, isn't loneliness, it's power. It's where they become their sharpest, strongest, and most authentic self. When they stop caring, nothing external can control or break them again. Every introvert eventually reaches a moment when they realize that freedom isn't found in controlling the world, it's found in no longer letting the world control them. For years, they might have been shaped by expectations, manipulated by guilt, or drained by the opinions of others. But one day, after giving everything and getting nothing but exhaustion in return, something clicks. They stop caring, not out of bitterness, but out of awakening. The same energy that once went into worrying now flows into peace. The same attention that once fueled chaos now fuels growth. When they stop caring about how they're perceived, they become unpredictable, and that's what makes them dangerous. You can't guilt them, shame them, or sway them anymore. They don't chase validation, and they don't fear rejection. They've learned that control only exists when you crave approval, and once that craving dies, so does everyone else's power over you. Their detachment isn't numbness, it's liberation. They've stopped living reactively and started moving intentionally. This transformation shows in everything they do. Their silence becomes stronger, their words become sharper, their time becomes precious. They don't waste energy defending themselves or explaining their choices, they simply act. When others try to provoke them, they stay calm. When people withdraw love to manipulate, them, they don't flinch because they've learned that peace isn't something given, it's something protected. Nothing outside them can shake them anymore. Not approval, not rejection, not chaos, not silence. They've built emotional armor out of clarity, and once you've tasted that kind of freedom, you never go back. The opinions that once haunted them now sound like static. The pressure that once broke them now passes right through. Their mind becomes still, their energy unshakable, and their presence intimidating in its quiet power. That's the paradox of letting go. The less they care, the stronger they become. Because the moment an introvert stops being ruled by fear, by guilt, or by others' expectations, they can't be broken, manipulated, or controlled ever again. Their peace becomes their rebellion. Their detachment becomes their shield. And their silence, that once timid quiet, becomes the sound of ultimate freedom. When an introvert reaches this level of calm detachment, they stop living for validation and start living with intention. Nothing external defines them anymore. Not approval, not chaos, not love, not loss. They've become the quiet storm that no one can predict and no one can control. If you've ever reached that point where peace matters more than being understood, you already know the power of silence. You already know what it feels like to let go and finally breathe freely. So if this spoke to you, if you've stopped caring about what doesn't deserve your energy, comment unshakable below. Let's see how many quiet minds have chosen strength over noise. And if you're one of them, make sure to subscribe to Brainy Quiet Mind, where silence isn't weakness, it's evolution.